Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely game-changing concept from the English class known as the chunking method. Listen, if you've ever found yourself totally exhausted by the mental gymnastics of speaking a new language, and you just want to unlock a much more natural, effortless fluency, well, you're in exactly the right place.
So tell me if this sounds familiar. Have you ever frozen mid-sentence when trying to speak a new language? We've all been there, right? You literally have the vocabulary filed away in your brain somewhere, you've studied the grammar rules for hours on end, but the exact moment you open your mouth to speak to a native speaker, boom, your mind just goes completely blank. The panic sets in, you start sweating, and that silence feels like it lasts a lifetime. It is a universally frustrating, anxiety-inducing experience. But what if freezing up like that isn't actually a problem with your memory at all? What if it's actually a problem with how you're assembling your words?
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The word-by-word trap.
Let's look at a really relatable example. Picture this guy, Jake. He's an English learner who recently started a new job as a barista at a coffee shop. He was doing his absolute best, trying to be super polite and helpful to everyone. One day, a customer walks right up to his counter and asks a very simple, everyday question. "Hi, could you recommend something sweet?" Now, Jake knew the words. He genuinely wanted to give a great answer, but instead of responding naturally, his brain just went into complete overdrive. He tried to build his response word by single word. He stood there overthinking and stammering out, "I recommend you, maybe." He was desperately searching his brain for the exact verb, the perfect pronoun, the correct sentence structure, and the result, he got incredibly nervous and he just completely froze.
And this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference between two completely different approaches to speaking. Jake's initial attempt, the one that failed, relied on that exhausting word-by-word approach. It left him nervous, stressed out, and totally frozen in place. But his teacher actually gave him a new strategy. He went home and learned a few simple phrases. And the very next day, believe it or not, that exact same customer came back and asked the exact same question. But this time, Jake didn't build from scratch. He used chunks. He immediately replied, "Sure, let me think. How about this one?" The conversation was smooth, it was natural, and it was completely stress-free. He didn't even have to translate anything in his head.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, Enter the Chunking Method.
So what exactly is chunking? Basically, it's an incredibly easy yet super powerful way to learn English by using groups of words or small phrases that people naturally and frequently use together. The real magic here is that you do not build sentences from zero. You don't try to change these groups of words, you don't overanalyze them, you just use them exactly as they are. They're essentially pre-packaged pieces of language totally ready to be deployed whenever you need them.
Think of it like this. It's like building with ready-made Lego blocks. When you try to speak English word by word, it's honestly like you're trying to manufacture the plastic, mold the exact shape, and create the individual Lego block completely from scratch. All while the other person is just standing there waiting for you to speak. But with chunking, you don't build from zero. You're simply reaching into a bucket of ready-made Lego blocks and snapping them together. It is just incredibly efficient.
Let's look at some of these Lego blocks in action right now. Phrases like, "How's it going? I don't think so. Let me think. Long time no see. Have a nice day." And "no worries." These are chunks. When you use one of these, you never stop to think about the grammar. You don't say, "How is it going?" super slowly and painfully while flipping through a mental grammar textbook. No way. You just say, "How's it going?" in one smooth, confident breath. You're learning a complete idea, not just a single isolated word.
Moving right along to Section 3, Why Chunking Works.
It all really comes down to something called cognitive load. See, with the word-by-word brain, you're just working way too hard. You're trying to think about every single vocabulary word, all the complex grammar rules, the exact sentence structure, the verb tenses. It takes a massive amount of time, which inevitably causes you to pause, get super nervous, and ultimately lose your confidence. But with the chunking brain, you use whole, ready-made phrases without having to analyze a single thing. It requires vastly less thinking, completely freeing up your brain's energy for what actually matters, communication.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the ultimate secret of native speakers. This is exactly how they communicate. They don't build every sentence from zero. Instead, they rely heavily on these ready-made phrases, which naturally allows them to speak much faster and sound a lot more natural. Your brain ends up doing significantly less mechanical thinking and a whole lot more actual, genuine communicating. And when that happens, your confidence is gonna absolutely skyrocket.
Section 4, Everyday Chunking Examples. Let's get practical.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how simple this shift actually is in practice.
If you want to tell someone you are coming, you really don't need to overthink the present continuous tense. You just drop the chunk, I'm on my way. Need to say we should stay connected? Boom, let's keep in touch. Instead of awkwardly trying to piece together, that is not the important part, you just use the crisp, natural chunk, that's not the point. And if you want to say something is logical, you just drop, that makes sense. Every single one of these chunks delivers a completely clear message without a single ounce of grammatical guesswork on your end.
Now you might be sitting there wondering, okay, but how do I actually get all these chunks into my head? Good news, you don't need a dictionary. You acquire them naturally. You'll hear the same phrases, things like, I'm not sure, let me check, or it's up to you, repeatedly when you're just out there listening to English. Please, whatever you do, avoid painfully memorizing them from long vocabulary lists. The real goal here is exposure. If you hear them again and again, and you just make a little effort to use them often, they become completely natural to you, and your fluency is going to build totally automatically.
And finally, Section 5, Thinking in English.
So the crucial point is this. When you fully embrace this chunking method, you're actually rewiring your brain to stop translating and start speaking freely. By totally bypassing that slow, clumsy mental translation phase, you grab the English concept as a whole, complete unit, and you just say it. You aren't taking a phrase from your native language, painfully passing it through some mental grammar filter, and pushing out a choppy English sentence. No. This is the exact shift that brings true, effortless confidence to your conversations.
Learning English honestly becomes so much easier and way more fun when you rely on naturally occurring chunks rather than trying to build sentences word by agonizing word. Just learning a few of these little blocks every single day will make a massive, tangible difference in your fluency. So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. What chunks will you build with today? Keep listening, keep speaking, and definitely keep believing in yourself. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.